Coming in hot, I'm your host and captain of the Reason to Reason podcast, Sal Galati. We're going to do something a little bit different. You're just going to get a taste, a dose of reason. Hope you didn't miss me too much. Coming at you from my bunker. I wanted to speak into the situation, and I kind of always just want to take a different take on it. Going to comment on this whole fiasco with this Signal chat going on with some of the security team and this journalist with The Atlantic. And I'm going to take the approach of talking about signal versus noise, news versus information. What do I mean by that? Signal's the real deal. Signal's what we should be focused on. The noise is what the world's trying to distract you with. The media's trying to distract you with. The political elite are trying to distract you with. Information is what we should seek, not the news. You want to know what the hell's going on? Turn the news off. You don't believe me? How about Thomas Jefferson? Here's a quote of his, and he has many regarding the news. The man who never looks into a newspaper is better informed than he who reads them, inasmuch as he who knows nothing is nearer to the truth than he whose mind is filled with falsehoods and error. So let's talk about this guy from The Atlantic. Here are 3 things he lied about knowingly, and there's probably many more. The Russia colluded with Trump hoax that divided our nation needlessly, and still people can't get it in their head that that didn't happen. That Trump said there were many fine people in Charleston that were associated with Nazis and white supremacists. He never said such a thing, and politicians knowingly lied about it, including Obama and Biden during the election. He also lied about Trump calling World War II veterans that died suckers and losers and refusing to visit their grave sites. So the news wants you to think, the narrative that they want you to dance to is that Trump's administration's chaotic, the world's melting down, everything's going crazy. I'd remind you that when he left office, there were no wars going on in Ukraine. There was no attack in the Middle East. There was relative peace in the world, and now we're in the throes of chaos. So this journalist with The Atlantic apparently got on a Signal text thread. Signal's an app involving members of our Defense Department, CIA, and it's unfortunate, that he was on here. And he saw some text regarding an attack on this group called the Houthis. Now, the Houthis are a terrorist organization backed by Iran. Trump deemed them terrorists in his first term. Biden removed that designation. They've since been wreaking chaos, disturbing commerce in that part of the world. The American administration decided to stop it. And prior to the attack, some of these texts went out. Nothing confidential, nothing classified from what is being reported. But somehow this guy got on there. I don't know how. Seems mysterious. We'll talk about what I think's maybe going on. I think there's another fox in the hen house like there was in the first administration. But mysteriously, he got it on 315. He didn't say anything until the day before a pre-scheduled hearing was going to take place. And what was going to happen on that hearing? It was going to be with FBI, CIA, other department heads of security apparatuses within our government. And really, they were going to have a lot of good news to talk about. They were going to talk about Ukraine and Russia getting closer to peace, the Middle East calming down, getting rid of terrorists and gangsters and violent criminals in our land, and the amount of drugs that was being seized. It was all good news. But instead, we talked about this little story. Signal, not noise. Information, not news. The things we should have been talking about, no one wanted to talk about. We were talking about the scam. We were talking about the sideshow. And it's all to disorient and distract. And how do I know that? I don't know for sure, but I've seen this play run before. I saw a phone call during Trump's first administration with the president of Ukraine. What was the phone call about? He was poking around, asking about corruption going on with then the former Vice President Biden's son, Hunter Biden, who now everyone knows what an unaccomplished fool this guy was. A tragedy of a life, honestly. And he was on the board of an energy company there. He had no talent, no skill of any worth other than he was the vice president's son. And with that, it bought power with the American administration. And this is all well documented. Trump asked about that and trying to get to the bottom of it. And for that, they impeached him. Now, a guy named Schiff was heading up that investigation. He was a congressman at the time. And he completely made up the contents of the phone call. He scripted it out like a poorly written high school play about Trump bullying Zelensky into and intimidating him that if he didn't go after his political enemies at that time, Biden, he would withhold funding. Complete lie and garbage. Schiff didn't know that they actually had a transcription of the call that completely invalidated what he said. And now this guy's a senator. That's how our country rewards him. Because the voters are so misinformed and so confused, they don't know up from down or right from left. Now, all of a sudden, these people that are investigating our current administration are so concerned with national security. Concerned. They weren't concerned when terrorists were coming across the border, and they said we had to pass a bill to stop it. Turns out we didn't have to pass a bill. Trump stopped it within 3-4 weeks. They weren't concerned when Afghanistan fiasco occurred. No one's been held accountable for that. Dozens of kids killed, maimed. Dozens of innocent citizens killed for nothing, for incompetence, and no one wants to talk about it. And I got to watch these charlatan actors screeching about their concern. Here's the punchline. Here's the signal. Here's the information. The attack was a success. And against these very violent people that everyone's worried about that Biden took off the terrorist list, the attack was a success. It wasn't a miserable failure like the prior administrations. So I'm no journalist, but here's my questions. How did this guy get on that text thread? Why is it that it took him 10 days to report and happened to dump the news the night before the hearing that was not related but then was completely obsessed with this nonsense? Why did it seem that the senators asking a question seemed to have been preparing for several weeks about this thing? A lot of questions. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I also don't believe in an insane amount of coincidences. Here's the final coincidence as this farce continues to develop. The judge that ordered that a plane full of terrorists and criminals that were not citizens of this nation, that were being exported from our nation, a judge ordered that plane be turned around. For what reason, I don't know. They weren't citizens. They were criminals. They were known criminals. In the midst of flight, he wanted the plane turned around. This is the same judge, by luck of the draw, that's going to get involved with this fiasco. You don't think something's coordinated? Let's not be useful idiots, people. Let's not get manipulated by the news. Let's seek information. Turn off the noise. Focus on the signal. If you like that little dose of reason and you want to hear some more, there's some longer episodes in the library. Check them out. Send in your ideas, reasonstoreason@gmail.com. Share it. Pass it along. Keep talking. Peace.